Update. Am I the a-hole for financially screwing over my sister after finding out she's close with my ex and his wife? For the first part of this story, click the link in the description. This will be my first and only update. So I spoke to my sister again. She apologized for reacting that way the last time, also for keeping it from me all these years. She said she didn't tell me because she knew I would ask her to choose, and she didn't want to be in that position. She said she never wanted to hurt me, but at the same time, she couldn't bring herself to walk away from the people who had been there for her. She said it never felt fair to cut him off completely. Growing up, our parents were barely around. They were always busy with work, and for a long time, it was just me and my ex who were actually present in her life. He was like family to her. Then she brought up the accident she was in around 5 years ago. I knew about it, of course. She had multiple fractures, hematomas, and internal bruising. She was in the hospital for a while and bedridden for weeks. I always assumed our parents were taking care of her. I never asked, and I never really checked in. I was too busy trying to manage a recent divorce, a small child, a career, and whatever was left of my mental health. She said it was my ex's wife who stepped up. She took her to every appointment, picked up prescriptions, brought food, helped her move around, stayed with her when she couldn't be alone. And at one point she said, "I know it hurts you, but she was there. He was there. You weren't. You didn't even come to the hospital. I thought I was gonna die and you didn't even show up." She cried while telling me all this. She said she still wants a relationship with me, but she's not going to cut them off. She also said she's fine with me not helping her with the loans anymore. She's planning to get a part-time job and figure it out herself. She told my ex and his wife about our conversation. Apparently, they offered to help her financially, but she turned it down too. I just listened. Then I told her she's free to do whatever she wants, and so am I, and to never call me again. So that's where we are. Haha, you didn't even ask if your sister was dead? With family like you, who needs enemies? I had a 5-year-old, a full-time job, and a brain that was barely holding it together. I texted her, but no, I didn't go to the hospital. I assumed our parents were taking care of her. I was wrong. I'm not defending it. Nothing in her explanation excuses or addresses why she would befriend the woman your ex cheated with before her accident. She said they weren't friends before the accident. She was cordial to her. They only became close after the accident. You still weren't the a-hole though, in case you wondered. Exactly. Sister wanted to find a way to excuse her betrayal by putting it on OP. This woman must take great pleasure in luring a husband and sister away from OP, getting them both to deceive her, whose family she helped destroy. So you were left cleaning up the mess that your ex and his hoe created. She steals him, then comes for your sister? Nah, this was a calculated move on the side piece's part. I'm glad you cut your sister off, and shame on your ex and affair partner. They know what they're doing. Hope your sister thinks it's worth it. Absolutely agree with you. This wasn't some random coincidence. It was calculated and messy from the start. Cutting off your sister was the right call. Anyone who disrespects you like that doesn't deserve a seat at your table. Let them enjoy the chaos they created. You did the right thing. Next story. Am I the a-hole for only wanting a relationship with my grandson and not his half-sister? I'm 55 female, lost my daughter Amy to an accident 2 years ago. Amy was married to Daniel, and they had my grandson Kai together, who is now 8. Daniel met his current partner a year after Amy died, and they welcomed a baby in May of this year. Ever since the birth of his daughter, Daniel has had an issue with us wanting time with just Kai. Daniel was upset when we didn't go to his and his partner's baby shower. He was upset we bought nothing for his baby, and he was even more upset when we didn't come to the hospital to meet his baby. We were taking care of Kai while Daniel's partner was giving birth, and Kai wasn't even allowed per the rules of the hospital. Daniel still expected us to take turns visiting his child, who he called our newest grandchild. My husband and Daniel had a conversation about that title and the expectation that his new child was our grandchild. He told my husband he didn't see why Kai should be the only kid to get grandparents, and he said we only had one child and one grandchild, so we should be happy to have even more grandchildren from him and his partner. My husband told Daniel we would be nice to his daughter when we saw her, but Kai was still our only grandchild. Daniel threatened to stop us from seeing Kai afterward, and then he did some research and learned we would have a case for grandparents' visitation if he did this. So he has been attempting to force his partner and daughter into our lives more regularly, in an attempt to make us treat them like a daughter or daughter-in-law and granddaughter. Last week, Kai told me he misses spending time at our house and having sleepovers. Even before Amy died, we would have him overnight, etc. Now it's Daniel's whole family when we see Kai, and he attempts to make us focus only on Daniel's daughter. I asked Daniel to consider a sleepover for Kai soon, and he asked me why I wasn't making the offer for his daughter. I told him Kai is my grandson, and I care very much about maintaining a good relationship with him. Daniel asked me if I only wanted a relationship with Kai and not his daughter. I said yes. I told Daniel that he needs to understand that Kai is Amy's, and she was our only child, and we already lost her. He told me it wasn't fair, and he released a lot of frustration, which I sat and listened to. Then he told me, "Fine, I won. Kai wants to be with us without the rest of them anyway, so we win." He then told me he hoped I could live with myself when his daughter and any future children felt like crap, because they weren't good enough in our eyes to be our grandchildren too. I felt he was unfair, but he made himself perfectly clear that he felt my husband and I were not good people. He did bring Kai for a sleepover all weekend, which Kai loved, and he spent the day at our house yesterday too. But again, Daniel let it be known he felt my husband and I were not good people. Am I the a-hole? I have a half-sister, but the only grandparents we share are on our father's side. She doesn't have a relationship with my mother or my mother's side of the family, and while I have a relationship with her mother, since her mother is my stepmother, I don't have one with my stepmother's relatives. And that's perfectly fine with everyone involved. I'm not biologically related to them, so I'm not their responsibility. It's all about personal relationships. People connect differently, and it's okay to have boundaries, especially after such a profound loss. Exactly. And relationships that happen organically and aren't forced are the ones that thrive. Not the a-hole. Does his new baby not have other grandparents? Even if it doesn't, that's not your responsibility. Your grandson may have extra grandparents, but he has lost his only mummy. No other grandparents involved, but she does have an aunt. Well, there's your answer. They want all the things grandparents provide. Babysitting, free stuff, babysitting, babysitting. Did I mention babysitting? And yeah, to a degree I get it. Not having really any outside help and 2 kids, that's a lot. But also, any potential chance he did want to develop that type of relationship with you guys has been dashed by him trying to demand and force it. Doesn't work like that. Set up a trust for Kai and make sure you document everything. Daniel probably wants you to pay for his daughter's college too, etc. Or house down payments for all of them. You are right, and the new wife should be delighted she has the help with her stepson. Just stick to your own sense of things, which is correct. Polite but don't budge. Not the a-hole. We did this already. Anything Amy would have gotten will now go to Kai, and we're making sure to protect it, so it will only be Kai's and not anyone else's. Please make sure an attorney has it set up, so it can't be used to purchase a new larger home for the entire family, under the guise it is housing Kai. I know someone who had this happen. It will be 100% secure, and Daniel will never be in charge of it or have access to it. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my half-siblings I will never regret choosing to live with my grandparents over them and their mom? I, 33 male, lost both of my parents by the time I was 10. My mom when I was 5 and my dad when I was 9. My dad had remarried and had a kid with his wife, and they had another on the way when he died. My grandparents and my dad's widow fought for custody of me, and because I wanted to be with my grandparents, they won the custody battle. I didn't spend a lot of time with my half-siblings back then, and I resisted playing happy families with them and their mom. She wanted me with them and felt like I belonged with them, but I felt like I belonged with my real family, and luckily that's where I was. For years, I had no contact with my half-siblings at all. This all changed 3 years ago when they reached out and said they wanted to know me and have me in their lives. We talk once a month and DM a little in between. They want the relationship with me more than I do. But even more than that, they have expressed on a number of occasions that they feel like the courts made the wrong decision and that my choice was wrong. They keep looking for me to regret the choice, and they have mentioned several times that their mom has longed for a relationship with me and misses me. A few times, they called their mom my mom. I corrected them and always made it clear I never considered her my mom. They never understood this and questioned me on it, and I always answered. Last time we talked, they told me they need to hear me say I regret choosing to live with my grandparents over them and their mom. They said it's something that haunted their family for years, and they need to know if I could go back, I'd make a different decision. I told them that would be a lie, and I have never regretted it. I told them being raised by my family was better than being raised by the woman my dad married. I said I never thought of her as a parent or as my family. They asked me how I could get to my age and have kids. I have 3 and still feel that way. They told me being raised by a parent would have been better than being raised by grandparents. I said if I had a parent, then yes, but I didn't. Both my parents are gone and their mom was never one of mine. Then they had me confirm my lack of regret, and they said I was freaking cold and should have a heart, considering their mom fought so hard for me and loved me as her own. I refused to apologize, and they were more than happy to talk at me for hours about how awful I am. Instead of listening, I ended the call. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. They're mad you didn't trauma bond with their mom just because she wanted to be your mom. You were a grieving kid, not a consolation prize. Choosing your grandparents wasn't cold, it was choosing love and stability. They need therapy, not your regret. And in all honesty, they would not have had a very good life if I had lived there. I'd have been so bitter to be raised by her. Maybe she would have eventually put me in foster care when she realized I didn't want to be with her. So we have no idea if the fantasy would become reality. Not the a-hole. As you said, she is not your parent, and there was no reason for you to want to live with them when you had loving grandparents willing to raise you. You have a right to your feelings and them to theirs. However, trying to pressure you to express regret on something you obviously don't, it's a bit manipulative and entitled, and it is weird they keep insisting on it. They likely grew up hearing their mom talk about the custody battle, the fact she saw me as her son, and how much it hurt her to have me leave. So I can understand it to a point, but the fact I have not desired a relationship with their mom now should tell them where I stand on this today. Still, they are adults now and should respect your feelings, not understand because they are obviously not in your shoes and cannot know what you've been through with losing both your parents so young. However, they are old enough to understand life is not simple, and choices you might think are good for someone, in that someone's eyes they are not. So they are angry because their fantasy and your reality don't match. Yes, and really, it is a fantasy. They have no idea how it would have turned out if she had won. Last story. Am I the a-hole for letting Daycare call CPS when my soon-to-be ex-husband failed to pick up our toddler from daycare? We're in a trial separation. He wants half custody. It's been several months, and it was the 8th time Daycare has called me because he was unable to pick up our toddler. Sometimes he was just a no-show, and the daycare would call me because it had already been half an hour since their official close time. Every time the daycare is mad at me for making them stay overtime, and we're charged $2 per minute for being late. They threaten to call authorities and CPS if we keep doing this. I tried to explain the problem, but daycare doesn't care, as they shouldn't. Well, last week it happened again, and I told daycare to go ahead and call the authorities and CPS. My soon-to-be ex-husband showed up an hour late and met our toddler there with the cops. Daycare also threatened to kick our toddler out, again understandably so. My soon-to-be ex-husband was so mad and said I was a cruel mother for abandoning our toddler. I told him I warned him multiple times in the past, and issues only arise when he has custody. We switch each week, trialing house swap too. I told him repeatedly that if he cannot get out of work reliably, he needs to hire a babysitter or nanny, and he cannot rely on me as his primary backup. I'd get it if it was like once or twice a year, or if babysitter or nanny plans fell through. But if I'm his ex-wife and he has custody, he shouldn't depend on me as his primary backup. And I also felt bad about leaving our toddler. But if we separated, this would only keep happening, and I felt short-term pain might be worth the long-term gain. I feel bad our toddler is caught in the middle, but was I the a-hole for letting Daycare call CPS? Relevant details: we both have high-paying jobs, but I intentionally do not schedule myself to work late on days I have him, or I have a nanny and babysitter ready. Now with a trial separation, I have cut down to half-time. I work half days on the days I have our toddler so I can spend time with him, and work long days on days I'm child-free. He has made no changes to his schedule. Not the a-hole. If he wants to share custody, he needs to do the work half the time or deal with the consequences like an adult. Can't play weekend dad and expect full credit parenting. Share the kid, share the responsibility, or don't bother. Exactly, but if he's like this, chances are he's only insisting on shared custody to get out of paying child support. Please be careful that you don't screw yourself over with this. Yes, your soon-to-be ex should have consequences for failing to care for your son by not picking him up from daycare during his parenting time. However, you may not be helping yourself on the upcoming custody battle by telling the daycare to go ahead and call CPS. Instead, go pick your son up every single time and document it. Ask the daycare to call your soon-to-be ex before calling you and to keep a record for you of how many times he has to be called because he is late or no-shows. Use that documentation of your soon-to-be ex's irresponsibility in making sure your child is cared for to get full custody of your son, limited visitation, and full child support. I'd lose my job if I keep calling out in place of him. How will you manage your work commitments if you get full custody? The current situation is clearly not working and it's negatively impacting your child. Your husband is unlikely to get better, so you need to think of a new plan. I'd use child support for a part-time nanny. I have a stay-at-home mom friend right now, who I pay to get my child if my day runs long. Would be abnormal because the weeks I have him, I only do shorter days. I'm done usually by 2 p.m., but she's there as my part-time nanny to help me out if I run late. Her kids are older.